Okay, so now we made it to the next section on math methods. I'm going to combine these last two sections and we're going to end this chapter with this video because these two sections are not that long, and this is a lot more to do with you actually going through and getting familiar with the different resources that we're giving you to be prepared to finish up with the objects chapter. So if you're new to this channel and you would like to follow along with the curriculum, it is free. The link is in the description. Okay, let's get into it. Math methods. As with strings and arrays, JavaScript provides some built-in methods for the math object. These allow us to perform calculations or tasks that are more involved than simple multiplication, division, addition, or subtraction. The common math methods. The math object contains over 30 methods. The table below provides a sample of the most frequently used options. More complete lists can be found here. I highly recommend that you do go through this list just to get familiar what's there. The ones that we're showing you are the ones you're going to use more often than others, but it's important that you know what's there because you never know when you may need it. Now, to see a detailed example for a particular method, click on its name. Now here we go. We have the method, the syntax, and the number. Now remember, how do I know this is a method? It's because methods have parentheses, which the parentheses are called operators. And it's on the right hand side of the dot. On the left hand side will be the object. So it still goes with what we've been teaching you up until this point. Now go through each one of these because you will use these in your career. Some of these you're not going to use as much as like max or min, floor, seal, random. You're going to use random, you're going to round, and you may use the square root. But get familiar with these methods and the descriptions. Now, like I said, this section is not that long, so this is where you are going to have to put the effort in going through to find out what these mean and get familiar with them. But again, go to the links, look at all of them, see what's there, and bookmark it. That's the end of this particular section. Let's go to the next section. Well, we're going to be combining math methods. The math method provides useful actions, but each one is fairly specific in what it does. Taking a square root at first glance, this might seem to limit how often we need to call on math. However, the methods can be manipulated or combined to produce some clever results. Random selections from an array. To select a random item from the array, like here, happiness, and we have an array of collection of strings, we need to randomly generate an index value from 0 to 7. Since the math.random returns a decimal number between 0 and 1, the method on its own will not work. Pay attention to that. The method on its own will not work. So the .random method here is telling you it won't work by itself. Let's see what it means. The math random appendix page describes how to generate random integers by combining the random and floor methods. We will use this functionality now. Let's define a function that takes an array as a parameter. Since we might not know how many times are in the array or how many items are in the array, we cannot multiply math.round by a specific value. unfortunately, we have the length property. Open up the kindest selection in your examples, and you're gonna run this code to see how it works. So as I read through this, I understand that this is a function that's being defined, and it's called random selection, passing an ARR, which represents an array. Now I'm going to create a variable called index inside this function, and I'm going to assign the math.floor, and notice the syntax here. I have the floor method, but inside of the floor method, I'm passing it math.random, and I'm multiplying it by array.length, and then I'm going to return the array, or ARR, square bracket index. Now, just by reading this, as you get more familiar with practicing and understanding how functions work, I can read this and I understand that I want to get the bottom, the floor of a decimal. So if it's 1.2, I want to go ahead and round it down, and then I'm going to use because that's what I just want to make sure that it's rounded down to the lowest decimal number, which will be the whole number and not a decimal. And then I'm going to have the math.random times array.length. So whatever is in this array, if I have 5 items in this array, it's going to make sure it go through the whole array, and it's just going to randomly pick me an index. That's why I called it index. So by looking at it, it's going to randomly pick the index of whatever is at that index. Now here we created the variable happiness, and we have all these strings, collection of strings for happiness. And then what do we do next? We loop through it. We do a for loop, and we go I equal assigned to 0, and I less than 8, I plus plus console.log, a function that we created. We are now invoking that function, and now we're passing in that particular array. Now randomly it goes through, loops through all of them, and it just randomly puts them into order. It gives me everything inside of this particular array. Now the thing about this, we look at the happiness. How do I know it's 8 items in it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because we can see that. This is hard coded. This was not dynamically used. What happens if you go ahead and play with it and you do happiness.length? Will it give you the same results? That's something you want to play around with. Now, the happiness array has a length of 8. So in line 2, math.floor, math.random method times array.length evaluates to math.floor, math.random times 8. That's what this is. We know that there's 8. It was just another way to do it, but play around with it to see what results you get, which generates an integer from 0 to 7, which is the index 0 to 7, not the items. Line 3 then returns a random selection from the array. Rounding to decimal places. The ceil, the floor, and the round methods all take a decimal value and return an integer. But what if we wanted to round these numbers to 2 decimal places? So we got 5.56789123. But we just want to go to 2 decimal places, 5 and 6. Let's explore how to make this happen by starting with a simple example. Math.round 1.23 returns 1. But what if we want to round to 1 decimal place, 1.2? We cannot alter what round does. Now pay attention, we can't alter what round does. It always returns an integer. However, we can change the number used as the argument. Let's multiply 1.23 by 10. 1.23 times 10 equals 12.3. And then apply the method math.round. 12.3 returns 12. Why do we do this? Well, if we divide 12 by 10, we get 1.2. We get the results of rounding 1.23 to one decimal place. Combining these steps gives us math.round. 1.23 or 23 times 10 divided by 10. That's a formula if you noticed, which returns the value 1.2. Let's return to 5.567891123 and step through the logic for rounding to two decimal places. So we have the math.round, and then we're using the formula. Get familiar with the formula. Evaluate the numbers in the parentheses first. 5.5678123 times 100, because remember it's in a parentheses, so we want that to go first, precedence. And then it gives us 556, right? Dot 789123. It moves the decimal over. Now we can use the math.round divided by 100. Apply the round method to the number 556.789123, and it's 557 divided by 100. It's rounding up. Perform the division. 557 divided by 100, and it gives us 5.57, because this 7 right here is greater than 5 to be able to round up, so that's why it's rounding up to 5.7, and it gives us the rounded version of it. The clever trick for rounding to decimal places is to multiply the original number by some factor of 10. Round the result, then divide the integer by the same factor of 10. The number of digits we want after the decimal are shifted in front of the dot. Remember the dot. Before rounding, then move back into place by the division. So we just have a formula that we're using right here. So here's the decimal places and answers. You can round as many as you want as long as you follow the rule here. So if you want to go 3 places, 1 place over, it's 10. 2 places, 100. 3 places, 1,000, and so forth and so on. Check your understanding. We've now made it to the end of this chapter and this section. Go through the exercises. Get familiar with the resources that we have given you. Play around with the code with different things to get different results, so you can get a better understanding on how the math object works. So now we made it to the end. Again, the more you practice, or the more you do, the more you improve. Okay, see you in the next chapter. Take care.